Which is kind of helpful to know is like, what is common sense? We throw this around a lot, but like when we're looking at like the paper and things like this, like when we're saying something that's like common sense, what are we trying to get at here?
Yeah, also a hard question because again, philosophers define it differently, but there is a common core, I think, to most characterizations of common sense. Uh, but it would be helpful to begin by talking a little bit about what philosophers don't mean when they talk about common sense or common sense philosophy. They're
Hmm.
not talking about practical or moral imperatives like don't spit into the wind
Okay.
or look both ways before crossing the street. Or one of my favorites is don't cook bacon in the nude. Right? Treat others like you would want to be treated. Or another good one is don't ask a stranger when she's due.
Mm.
I actually had that one happen in my church years ago. This old witty guy, first time visitor in the church, he went up to her and asked her when she's due. Apparently, he thought she was pregnant. She wasn't.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we're also not talking about merely sensible beliefs that are common. Things
Mm.
like men are stronger than women, or you can't change the past, or the earth is round. These are common beliefs that are sensible, but they're not common sense beliefs by philosophers' lights. Philosophers have something else in mind when they refer to common sense beliefs. So to get a handle on what they mean, there's no better place to look than the most famous common sense philosophers themselves, which is Thomas Reid, 19th century philosopher, Scottish philosopher, and G.E. Moore, a 20th century English philosopher. And they both have a bunch of examples of common sense beliefs, and here are some that I just kind of plucked out of their writings. It says, "I exist and have a body." Yeah, that's a belief I have. I would imagine most people have that belief. The
Hmm.
thoughts of which I am conscious are my own. They're not anyone else's thoughts. What I distinctly remember actually happened. I'm the same person over the course of my whole life. It's not like there are multiple persons that exist within this body. What I perceive by my senses really exists and is roughly as I perceive it to be. So our senses are generally reliable.
Mm.
I have some degree of power or control over my actions. I can raise my arm, I can lower my arm at command, at will. Other people like me exist, material objects exist, space and time are real, and so on. So these are very, very basic beliefs. They're not
Yeah.
witticisms, they're not imperatives, they're not, like little nuggets of wisdom or anything like that. And in fact, they're not even anything you learn by inference or deduction.
Hmm.
As Reed says, they're things that are no sooner understood than they are believed. They seem self evidently true. So we just find ourselves believing them. They're just givens, almost even too obvious to state. So I think a fair characterization of what philosophers mean by common sense beliefs are beliefs that are deeply held and widely held, and they're mostly tacit. They're mostly just kind of under the surface, too obvious to even state. They're taken to be a matter of common knowledge, and they're formed naturally and unreflectively via our own properly functioning faculties. I think that's a pretty fair characterization of what most philosophers mean by common sense beliefs.
Mm. Yeah, that's super helpful, and I really like the idea of like the self-evident beliefs. Like something that helps me sometimes when I think about these issues is like I think about like what did Zach believe when he was in high school, when like he was a freshman, sophomore, junior, before we started thinking about these topics, like certain things like my own existence or like the reliability of my memory. Like I never doubted these things. I was like, yeah, they're like duh, these things, of course they exist. So I like the criteria of self-evident is gonna be super important.